everyone, it's Larissa and
Only one.
And welcome to another exciting edition of Love Discovery and Dim Sum.
Although you don't sound very excited. You sound like you're sleeping.
You know what I have? I have sinus issues. The weather has been really brutal to my sinuses lately, so if I sound a little like muffled, it's because...
Welcome to another exciting episode.
Yeah, no.
All right.
All right.
All right, what are we talking about this week?
Well, first off, did you know that it's our 3-year anniversary since we started the podcast?
Whoa. Is that like good in history of podcasters?
Is that like 7 years and dog years? No, I don't know. I don't know. But you know what? Do you remember what our first episode was about?
I think our first one was Crazy Rich Asians.
It was a guide to Crazy Rich Asians. And
done by crazy poor Americans.
And fast forward now 3 years later, we are doing an episode dedicated to Shang-Chi.
Oh, yeah.
Our first Asian American superhero. Crazy Rich Asians was the first Asian American rom-com, and now we've progressed to Asian American superhero.
Finally.
It's about time.
It is about time.
You know what? I was reading this article in Variety where they were talking about the box office of Shang-Chi, right? So they thought it was only going to do like $40 or $50 million over the weekend, the Labor Day weekend. And it ended up breaking Labor Day weekend box office, $90 million.
Yeah, so
that's like double.
So who can't do math now?
Yeah, I know. they clearly underestimated.
They were off by 100%.
But I was reading this article in Variety, and somebody, one of the industry insiders, was saying like, "Oh, it's a departure for Marvel, this film, right?" And
okay.
you know what that's code for?
What does that mean, departure from?
You know
Marvel?
what that's code for, right?
You tell me what you think it means.
I think that's code for like, oh, this was a creative departure for Marvel because it didn't star any white people. Right.
That's yeah. Yep.
But you know, in my mind, I'm thinking,
was it a departure also for Black Panther?
That's what some people were saying. Or like, you know, Captain Marvel. All these terms were like, oh, this is a big risk that they're taking with Captain Marvel because it's the first female superhero. And with Black Panther, it's an all-black superhero cast. You know, these are things that I think are minority, underrepresented
Apparently,
communities.
Departures are good.
I'm thinking it's more like an arrival. Like, it's about time.
Yeah, flip that word.
Like, it's a creative arrival. Not a creative departure.
Oh, I like that.
You know what I'm saying?
And
I'm tweeting that, you know?
I like that.
Because I just think it's weird when people say things like departure, like, oh, you are so foreign and weird that it's a departure from what we normally do.
It's not normal.
It's not Captain America. Sorry.
Oddly enough, Asians have been historically around longer than like white people. I mean, China's over 5,000 years. You know,
civilization, yeah,
that's still in existence today. It's the oldest, like, current civilization that's still around.
I would agree that it's so strange to hear people say things like that, but that's the industry, right? Like, that's the industry that we work in, that we've had to kind of navigate some of these little terms and thinking like, oh, it's a surprise that Asians can actually open the box office, that people that are not Asian actually want to go see people that are Asian on screen.
I'm just thinking like more on a realistic sense. There's like, there are so many Asians in this world, and China is way bigger than America and has been here for so much longer. There's no way any of them could have developed superpowers or mutated.
Exactly.
Like, you know, like aliens would never land in China because why? It's such a small target for them to land in China and try to create and take over this world.
Well, and of course, like, no other action movies have ever used martial arts, ever.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because, you know, all the martial arts in Marvel and all their superhero movies were all American martial arts.
That's right. Well, and speaking of martial arts, I know that was one area we were all slightly concerned about when the movie was announced, because Shang-Chi is known in the comics as the master of Kung Fu, specifically.
Yeah, so I thought it was actually a movie about me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because you're a master.
You know, and also about my Kung Fu teacher.
Okay, right. Yep, that's right.
And also, maybe it was a story about
Ip Man or no.
Yeah, maybe it was like Ip Man 5. Shang-Chi, Ip Man 5.
Well, and we're always concerned whenever, you know, something is headlined as a martial arts focused film, right? And I was really hoping they would do more than just martial arts, and I will say they definitely delivered.
They did.
One of the aspects that I thought from the get-go when they announced the movie was like they have to have more of a mystical, magical element to it.
Yep.
Because he couldn't just be really, really good at martial arts, right? Like there had to have been something a little bit more powerful and super powered, right? Because he's a superhero, so he's got to have.
Like, why can't like lasers shoot out of his eyes or something, or even out of his ears? I mean, that would have been cool, you know?
Well, and it was very clever to use the 10 rings. And this isn't a spoiler because it's in all the trailers. They're really bracelets, or they're rings. They're still rings.
But it's a real martial arts style.
Yeah, there's a lot of styles in there.
But it's changed from the original 10 rings. The original 10 rings in the comic book was not like worn on the wrist.
No, they were actually rings on the fingers, and each one had a different power. Kind of like the Infinity Stones.
But it's so smart for them to switch it to the arms because, I don't know if you watched, remember Kung Fu Hustle? Yeah. There's the dude with the rings on his arms. I mean, that's they based a lot of that style on that, right? Yeah. So historically, it's even there.
But, you know, you see in the comics or, you know, cartoons sometimes when you see things like, you know, Green Lantern uses a ring, it's, like, not super cool to just, like, flash a ring out, right?
But an armband bracelet, yeah, that's kind of cool.
They did a really great job with the visual effects, with the usage and the creativity. Yeah. And the martial arts scenes, if you've read any of the reviews, we're not going to give any spoilers, but I will say I agree with most of the reviewers who say, like, the action scenes, there's a lot of set pieces, what they call, that are very memorable. Very well choreographed, very creative. You know, it's not just a bunch of people fighting. Right. Like, there's a lot of creativity in the flow of the scenes and really just kind of character development, too, so.
I mean, there's some classic martial arts stuff in there, too. Right, but it was done very beautifully.
And there was a variety. It wasn't like it was the same old thing time and time again in the film. So there was a lot to look at. So we did watch it in the movie theater.
We did.
We went to a matinee because there were fewer people.
Oh, and here's the tip.
Yes.
Here's the tip.
Here's the tip.
If available, watch it with Chinese subtitles.
Because it's in English with Mandarin subtitles.
But a lot of people aren't going to it because they think it's still going to be, it's in Chinese. But if you're in an area where there may not be a ton of Chinese people.
And they are offering it with Mandarin subtitles.
Go watch that.
Or I should say Chinese subtitles, because it doesn't matter if you're speaking Mandarin or Cantonese, you're still reading the same Chinese.
It might be simplified. If it's simplified, then it'll be Mandarin.
But yeah, but somebody who can, you know, other people who speak other dialects could possibly read it as well. Yeah. But it was well worth watching it in the theater. Now, of course, we understand everybody's comfort level is different. This is still coronavirus pandemic going on. And I still, you know, wait for the day that we can come onto a podcast and say the pandemic is over. But I understand this is the new normal. So I had, you know me, I was resisting going to see a movie in the theater for a very long time. The last movie I saw in the movie theater was our movie. Actually, that's the last movie you saw in the movie theater too.
Yeah, that's right.
Far East Deep South is the last movie. But I saw it last year in March.
A year and a half ago.
And that was before, like literally a couple days before everything shut down. And so I got to see our movie, but this movie is just fantastic to watch in the movie. We sat in the back row. There was like nobody next to us. It was really great to be socially distanced. And, you know, everybody had their mask on and nobody was eating. So everyone, like, it was very safe in my assessment, because no one's talking during the movie theater. Yeah. At least we're in the suburbs. You know, if you go to the city and you're more, you know, there's a lot more people I know. It's like that experience to kind of talk back. That was my favorite thing at UCLA when we used to go see movies, is like you'd have a room full of college students and like everybody shouting things at the, you know.
Yeah, but if you did that today, no one would understand because it'd be all muffled behind the mask. Oh, that was cool, huh? Whoa.
Yeah, that is very true.
Not the same effect.
So talk to me a little bit more about the martial arts, because I know you had some very strong feelings about it.
Well, I really loved it. And one of the things I identify with is because those that know me know that I've practiced the martial arts for a long time. So, yes, I'm stereotyped martial artist. I'm a Chinese guy, American that knows martial arts. But, you know, I actually started training kind of late in my career. I was in college when I really started, but I started with hard style martial arts, which I really love because it's like when you're young, you just want to beat people up.
So what's the difference between hard style and soft style?
Yeah, so a hard style martial art is the stuff that is very physical, stuff like breaking things, you know, like strength versus strength. So a lot of your karate,
like
Shotokan.
When you're breaking boards.
Right,
And...
or even like in Kung Fu, like some of the harder styles would be like your tiger style, like strong physical styles of martial arts.
And that's kind of like the style that Tony Leung's character was kind of fighting with, right? In Shang-Chi.
Yes. And that's really what makes Kung Fu movies really cool, and why that's the reason why martial arts is used in action sequences, is because of the hard style. Now, the person, well, I don't want to spoil it, but there's a person that the Wenwu character has trouble with. And the one he has trouble with is the one that's using a soft style martial arts, which is what I ended up really focusing my practice on. I started doing more Tai Chi, little bit of Qingyi and Bagua, but mostly Tai Chi, Yang style. I also did some Chen style, which is more of like it has some hard elements to it too, but that's like a softer martial arts where you learn to dissipate your opponent's strength. So you can literally be weaker physically, but still defeat an opponent with soft style martial arts.
I never knew that Tai Chi was so strong, even though it was soft, until I took Tai Chi lessons from you. I was in your class. When you used to
How was your teacher?
He was really, really awesome. Yeah. He was like the best Tai Chi teacher ever.
That you've ever had.
I've ever had. And I got to go home with him every single day.
Oh.
Ooh. By the way, we're married, in case you didn't know. And so what I thought was really interesting was the fact, again, they use so many different styles of martial arts. Because I think a lot of times people, again, just think like martial arts is just like one thing. Those of us who didn't study it, and I honestly didn't study it. And it was also really annoying in reading some of the reviews or like articles on Shang-Chi. It was when people would say like, oh yes, and Wenwu, that's the villain, who plays the AKA Mandarin in the film, was like, oh yes, and his ninja army.
Oh my gosh!
I read multiple articles would refer to his like ninja army, his henchmen, right?
Yeah, ninja,
and I'm like. Yes. You'll know that ninjas are Japanese, right? Like that's what people keep conflating Chinese, Japanese. And for people that are really Chinese, maybe not so much the ones that are American born, but like, there's a lot of beef between Japan and China. So like to say ninja is actually very insulting for like a lot of the Chinese community.
Even in the martial arts world, there's historically like, Chinese people always say Kung Fu is better than karate. And of course, Japanese people always say say like karate is better than Kung Fu, right?
Yeah, I mean both cultures think they're the best, but there's also
I've studied both, and I love it.
Yeah, and there's the whole history of Japan occupying China, invading China. I mean, there's just a lot of beef in history.
Well, it's also like when in our movie where I say like we're talking about when I first moved into the new school, and the kids were like, "Oh, you're Chinese, so you must know karate." I was like, no. First of all, I didn't take martial arts yet back then. It's probably because I got beat up by those 10 kids in 3rd grade.
Yeah, because like Karate Kid,
I
think everybody saw Karate Kid and they just automatically thought that everybody does karate, right?
Even though he did go to Okinawa, which is not in China.
Right. Yeah, because I think for like the younger generation, like Karate Kid is kind of the more reference, as opposed to like older generations. They had the Kung Fu fighting song, right?
Yeah.
Everybody was Kung Fu fighting.
Are we going back to our last thing about Asian scenting? Can we say that? Can you sing a song about Kung Fu fighting if you're not Asian? Is that allowed?
Okay,
we'll go.
Anyways,
that's the previous. That's the previous one. So go back to the previous podcast.
The martial arts, and then the other factor of the film that was actually in the comics of Shang-Chi was Fu Manchu, which they wisely ignored because they, I think Fu Manchu was actually the father of Shang-Chi in the comics. And if you ever seen the comics or know that stereotype, it's like the long mustache.
Oh my gosh, and the yellow apparel. We were at the Chinese American Museum in San Francisco, and they had a big, giant
Chinese Historical
Museum
Society of America.
Yeah, there was a giant poster-size version of that comic book, and it just showed like
the Fu Manchu one. Oh my
gosh!
Yeah, everything that's evil about someone that's Chinese, right?
Right, but I got some history with Fu Manchu too.
Yeah, tell me about that.
Well, when I was a kid, and one of my teachers, I won't say which one, I won't even say which class, but that teacher called me Fu Manchu.
Oh.
Because my last name is Chiu. And so whenever I did something good in the class, the teacher would say, go Fu Manchu.
Because your last name is Chiu.
Because my last name is Chiu. And the kids would laugh. I'd be like, who's Fu Manchu? Haha, I guess that's funny.
You didn't really know what
I had no idea,
was.
but this is an older teacher, so I'm sure this teacher read that comic book.
Yeah.
Right? So that was kind of my nickname for a short period of time in junior high.
Wow. And how did that make you feel?
I'm not too sure because I was like, okay, well, at least I'm getting some sort of attention now because, like, you know, the attention is usually either not there for me because I was the only Asian kid. You know, where I lived, you know, there was a few, one or two, but I mean, definitely not that many. And so I was like, okay, well, at least maybe that means this teacher likes me. Maybe it's something I should embrace because now I'm getting some attention. But I did get in trouble.
Really? How?
I got in trouble because I started drawing Fu Manchu as myself.
Oh.
Uh-huh. And my dad, so I drew it the way that it was depicted from the other kids, was you have a triangle hat with a little character with slanty eyes and buck teeth.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. And I started drawing that because everyone associated that with me because I am now Fu Manchu.
Wow.
And my dad saw that picture that I drew and he was like, what is this?
So your dad actually was very aware that that was a stereotype, because I know that a lot of parents, especially immigrant parents, sometimes are oblivious to the fact that there are stereotypes, you know, of our community.
Well, I think I remember my dad saying, like, does this look like you? Is this what you look like? I'm like, no. Then why are you drawing yourself like that? Why are other people drawing you like that?
I mean, that's definitely a good point, but it's crazy to think that people were calling you that. It's like when people used to call anyone Latino that was good at sports like Speedy Gonzalez, right?
Oh my gosh, I do remember that character.
At least Speedy was a cute little mouse. And I know there was debate about that with the new Space Jam movie. They did include Speedy, but it was voiced by, I think it was Gabriel Iglesias was the voice of it. And I think for him, he was actually saying for their community, they actually really loved Speedy because it was like the only representation they had.
Yeah,
and it was somewhat like positive,
cute.
even though it was a little stereotypical, but it was, he was saying at least he felt a strong connection to Speedy.
Sure.
So they kept him in there.
Sure.
So there was definitely debate about canceling Speedy Gonzalez. But I'm glad they canceled Fu Manchu.
Yes.
And this is also to credit of Destin Daniel Cretton, because he's the director of Shang-Chi, and he did a fantastic job. He is Asian American. One of the writers was Asian American. And this is the difference between having people who are sensitive to the culture and not sensitive, right? Like they said, okay, we're definitely going to get that out. Whereas, even though they've learned now, but Scott Derrickson and Kevin Feige, when they did the original Doctor Strange, they had included the ancient one and had thought they had been clever to cast somebody female. Yeah, right. But they, you know, Tilda Swinton was white. And so now in hindsight, they both understand that, but it took Scott Derrickson and Kevin Feige after they made the film to understand that mistake. Whereas here you have people that figured it out before the film was made, you know? and that's the difference. And so
all they had to do was consult one Asian person.
Yeah, or if just a few, you know. I think there's actually now several, like,
even just one. If he would have asked me, you know, I would have told him.
One of the producers in a lot of the more current Marvel films is actually Asian American. And so this is why representation matters and why it's important to have different voices in the room.
Well, they did a good job because even though the setting was in China, it was not necessarily a foreign, like, it didn't feel like a foreign film. And like when you had scenes starting in America, like there's clearly a difference between an Asian American, a Chinese American person,
right,
you know, or people,
right,
and different from people that are historically from China or still in China,
right.
And I liked how the characters, you could see that there is a difference between, you know, Shang-Chi, who was still born in China but raised in America, and his best friend Sisu from Raya and the Last Dragon.
As we now confuse people with, like, what?
Oh, yeah.
I thought we were talking about Shang-Chi.
Oh, yeah.
How did we get Raya and the Last Dragon?
Raya was in the movie, sort of, kind of. in two different ways in Shang-Chi.
Well, Awkwafina played
Awkwafina was in
Sisu the dragon in Raya, and there was
a mythical creature that begins with the letter D.
That may or may not have been there. Okay.
It's not, no spoilers.
But here's the thing, and I don't know if you noticed this, but one of my pet peeves, and you've heard me say this, is a lot of times when people go to San Francisco and there are Asian characters, they always show Chinatown. Lots and lots and lots of B-roll of the most Asian Chinese restaurants, lanterns you could possibly find. Yeah, of course, we have some of those in our film
because that's the only place Chinese people live.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they have to show that. And that's one of the things that I noticed in Always Be My Maybe, is that was also set in San Francisco, but they did a good job, again, of not, like, showing... I don't even know if they went to Chinatown at all, because it's like, Asian people live in the rest of San Francisco. And Shang-Chi, a.k.a. Sean, which was also a hilarious exchange, that his English name he chose was Sean, because that's very common with a lot of Chinese. In fact, your Chinese name is... tell them what your Chinese name is.
My Chinese name is Bowing, so they were like, well, give yourself an English name. Baldwin. Yeah. So I'm just like Shang-Chi. I mean, he took a page out of my book.
I know. So we kind of laughed at that. And
yeah, my superhero name, they will never know. Like,
right.
Yeah. If my superhero name was Boeing,
right,
then they would have found me out.
Your alter ego. It's like, what? Kal-El? Clark Kent? No. It's like, but, you know, they, again, showed scenes in San Francisco that were not stereotypically all Chinatown. You know, I like showing Chinatown. I think there's a place for it. But, yeah. You know, in our case, in our film, I showed it as a contrast a little bit to East versus West in America. And it was a location that was very important.
But we were also in Marina Green.
We were in Marina Green, and we were in Mississippi. So there was a lot of contrast in that. However, you know, those are the subtle things in filmmaking people don't realize. Like, we even had that encounter recently with a film crew. We won't say what, where there was like, oh, let's get more of the Asian stuff, you know?
Yeah. How about the American stuff too? No, I just went to Asian stuff.
That's always like setting up Asians as like the perpetual foreigner. The other thing that I really appreciated too was the costuming. Again, these are very, very subtle things where, yes, there were scenes where we were in traditional China or in more of a fantasy side of China that you had more traditional culturally looking Asian costuming. But in modern day, even when they were China, Macau, especially Macau, is like super...
they had like suits.
Yeah, they had suits.
And they looked nice, or at least for that period.
And he looked cool. And Tony Leung, who is amazing, you know, again, he plays Wenwu, the villain, aka the Mandarin.
He really does. He looks like a superhero to me. I mean,
he's a stud. I mean, he was already a superstar in Asia. And if you've never seen any of his films, you should check them out. My favorite film of his is Infernal Affairs, which is what The Departed was based on. Yeah. And he was absolutely fantastic in that movie.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I mean, Studley, I mean, I am glad that, you know, we had some Studley guys, you know, in Hollywood. They don't really like to put Asians, make us very Studley, manly.
It's only recently that we're starting to see that trend. Like, Simu Liu is now a Studley superhero, alpha male, right?
Yep.
And he's someone that is an instant star, which is fantastic because we always kind of go around like, so who are the Asian recognizable, you know, actors in the world?
Yeah.
And it's like crickets.
Yeah.
We can't even, and people will say Jackie Chan is like, he's not, I guess Simu's technically not American. He's Canadian.
But he's North American.
He's North American, and he is playing an Asian American.
Yes.
You know, even though the character was born in China, but he came to the U.S. and is in America.
As do many Canadian actors.
Yeah. that play superheroes. Like Ryan Reynolds is also, he's Deadpool. He's Canadian. Well, another thing that I really appreciated about the film is we're talking about how they portray men, is how they portrayed women. Because that's another pet peeve and issue we've had over the years in Hollywood and portrayals, is that the women have been sexualized, right, and fetishized. And I was very, very happy to see the women fully clothed and
I suppose I'm happy about that too.
yeah, fully clothed and not sexualized. Even like the sister who she does bare her midriff a little bit, but she looks like she's doing like Pilates or something. Like it's more like a fitness thing where she's just, I mean, she's beating all the guys up. I mean, she's like amazing, but it's never done in a sexualized manner. In the same way, the women in Black Panther were very attractive, but yet they were also not sexualized, and they were very powerful women. And so I think that was the other very pleasantly surprising thing, is that you had a lot of women were kicking a lot of guys' butts in this film.
Yeah.
And not the meek, mild, stereotypes, subservient and sexualized women.
Well, I mean, even like Black Widow is she's like super strong, but she's kind of sexualized.
Yeah, in fact, Scarlett Johansson said in the earlier movies, like, they definitely kept her in very skin-tight outfits with cleavage, and it was in later movies where she also voiced some of her opinions on that a little bit, that it got a little bit better. But this is sadly something women have dealt with for a very long time in Hollywood, and things are starting to kind of wake up, especially in wake of the Me Too movement, in terms of like, hey, let's treat our women with a little bit more dignity and maybe not objectify them so much.
Yeah.
And maybe we can reduce some of these issues we're having.
Well, going back to the martial arts part of it with the women, they have a very key role in the film, because it's actually the women who are kind of critical to...
Right, they're not just arm candy, right? They're not just
I'm trying not to give it away.
Right, we don't want to spoil too much, but the women do play an important role in the film.
I will say something about this when we're talking about hard and soft style.
Okay.
The women showed very clearly that soft power is pretty kick butt.
Yes.
So my first martial arts teacher is a woman. You met her.
Yes, I did. Uh-huh.
She's an 8th degree black belt Okinawan Uechi-ryu karate. Nicest blonde-haired lady, in the world. But she trained in Okinawa, and she is tough.
Right.
And she's the one who taught me a lot of my history about martial arts as I got into the Tai Chi.
But you're Chinese. How could you do Okinawa martial arts?
Well, I mean, that was what was available. And when I saw her and I took her martial arts class, I was taking it for historical reasons first. And I learned more about it. I was like, I really wanted to take her class. I also took like Taekwondo, and then I also took Tai Chi later on. And that's where I really stuck with Tai Chi. But she always told me that hard styles, in order to become, if you wanted to be a great martial artist and you started with a hard style like Uechi-ryu Okinawan karate, like, you always end up being soft at the end.
Interesting.
Likewise, soft styles, if you start off with soft styles, if you really want to improve, you end up being hard style at the end. So you learned a way to blend hard and soft together. And the women in Shang-Chi really showed how, like, all the guys, they were fighting with mostly hard style martial arts.
Right.
And the only way they could get better was to understand the soft style as well.
Yeah, that was definitely a very interesting element that I think maybe your casual moviegoer might not have noticed at all. And I think the other thing about Shang-Chi that I again appreciated was the authenticity. The other thing that I really appreciated was the authenticity in terms of language, because how many times have we seen a film that they're speaking Chinese and like, because I understand Mandarin, their people are horrible at Mandarin, or whatever the language is, or Cantonese, or we've heard a lot of really bad Cantonese in a lot of shows recently. And it was really, and that's not saying people can't learn Mandarin, for certain roles, but if your character is supposed to have grown up in China, or, you needed an authenticity to it. And Simu actually was born in China and, clearly speaks it at home because he could speak it authentically. And it was very necessary because there were times where they communicated, they switched back and forth between Mandarin and English, which I appreciated, and it was very natural.
It made it seem very authentic. That's the truth. And, although Tony Leung didn't start off speaking Mandarin in real life, because he's Canto.
He is Cantonese, but his Mandarin's actually quite good.
It was good. Well, yeah.
I mean, same thing. Michelle Yeoh.
Michelle Yeoh also spoke Cantonese.
She speaks Mandarin.
I mean, if Wenwu is like 1,000 years old, then like his first scenes, he should be probably speaking Cantonese
or whatever regional dialect.
Whatever regional,
it is
the original, like 1,000 years ago, that dialect 1,000 years ago closest one would probably be closer to the Southeast China,
right.
Like Cantonese would have been
Yeah,
closer.
that's the one area that they probably fudged a little bit, but
it's okay.
It's okay
I forgive
because
them.
for continuity's sake, I think it was gonna confuse people if you didn't do it that way. So there's some times where you have to kind of go the easiest route for the audience to follow along. But they also explained how they speak English because it sounded, he was saying teaching his son English,
multiple languages
that was important. So that was a good way to kind of explain that. In the end, I think our review of the film is definitely go see it.
Yes.
Understand that if you're not comfortable with going to theater, you can wait till it comes on streaming on Disney Plus, or a video on demand. But it's pretty amazing and dazzling on the big screen. And I didn't think I realized how much I missed going to a real movie theater with surround sound.
Yeah.
Until I watched this film because
if you have a home theater, then it might be worth it to watch it at home. Or if you can throw it on a projector and find the biggest empty wall in your house and hook it up to your sound system. But the theater experience is great. I mean, I want to go back to watch it on IMAX.
I kind of want to go back and see it again too. I mean, I really enjoyed it that much. And I think the other thing that, we talked about this when Mulan, was out, is that even though there is a lot of homage to other martial arts movies, it's not like they invented martial arts, right, for Shang-Chi. And there's a lot of other period pieces that they nod to. But I think what they did was do something different, and they got creative, and there is a magical, like, super powered element to it. Like everything that I would suggest putting in a movie, like they did. And to me, a good measure of a movie to me is, as a filmmaker, like, if I don't think I can make a better movie, then they've done a great job, It's always a problem when I watch a movie, and some of you filmmakers out there who might be listening to this might feel the same way, or even non-filmmakers. It's like, if you feel like you can make a better movie than what you just saw, that movie isn't that good, right?
I suppose that's true.
But if you sit back and you go like, wow, that was a really great movie, I don't know if I would have done a better job. You know? I mean, is it perfect? I mean, you can always like find flaws with like everything, but for the most part, I love the movie. I thought it was really enjoyable. And stacked against all the other Marvel movies, I think it actually ranks right up there. And definitely
for me, it's top 5. I would say top 3.
I mean, definitely, I'd have to kind of watch it again and then watch, like, Winter Soldier and, like, Civil War again, which I think, and even Endgame, like, Infinity War is, like, I like that, those are kind of the movies for me that were the best Marvel movies. And I'm so glad that he is now in the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Am I officially in the MCU?
Why is that?
I did do the first Hulk movie.
No. Oh. So the Ang Lee Hulk movie is not in the MCU. Oh. The Incredible Hulk.
I had a 6-pack back then.
The Incredible Hulk, which starred Edward Norton, who later was recast as Mark Ruffalo as the Hulk, is in the MCU. Oh. And knowing that actually plays into Shang-Chi. So there is a nod to that movie in this film. I mean, you saw it in the trailers. The Abomination is in there.
Yes, that's right. He was in The Incredible.
The Incredible Hulk. He was the villain.
That's right.
In the Edward Norton version. For all of you who are like super confused, you're like, what? If you're like not a superhero, like Marvel person watching, you're like, what in the world are they talking about? Okay. But if you were super geeky and nerdy like we are and are now having this discussion, you're like,
so I'm not the first Asian in the MCU.
Sorry.
There was other Asians too, but I guess none of us were in the
MCU.
MCU.
So I mean, technically Ang Lee would have been the first Asian director to direct a superhero movie, right?
That's true.
Yeah, but this is the MCU, and I'm really excited what the future holds. There's definitely a lot, and now I have Hotel California stuck in my head.
Oh yeah, you can't tell them why though.
Living it up in the Hotel California. Anyways,
it's a lovely place.
Anyway. Shang-Chi is out in theaters. If you get a chance to watch it, please go. Another thing that's coming out next week is...
Far East Deep South.
Far East Deep South is having their encore presentation on World Channel and PBS September 14th. You can catch it on air. Check your local listings. either on pbs.org or worldchannel.org or your TV, however you watch TV and your guides
It's on
and stuff.
satellite and cable.
There are multiple broadcasts if you're an old school on-air type of person. And then it's also streaming, right?
It's also streaming, so you can watch it on your phone, on the PBS app, on the computer, on your TV, on your Roku. Yeah.
Starting September 14th, you can stream the film as well at pbs.org or worldchannel.org until October 14th.
Right. And during that first week, there will be multiple screenings, like at least 3 or 4 during that week, that you can catch it over the air on your regular TV antenna, cable, or satellite.
So tell your friends, let everybody know. If you've already seen it, you can watch it again. We know the word of mouth has been strong, and we want to thank everybody who has been supporting the film.
It is a slightly shorter version, so if you are in the university system and you've seen our film already there, or at festivals, you've seen the full version, but PBS version is still cool.
And our film is available on Canopy with a K.
Canopy with a K.
If you're a student or work for a university, you can have access to our film on Canopy. And we actually highly encourage you to tell people at universities to pick up our film and include it into their curriculum in this next school year, because we feel our film is important in terms of broadening the way we discuss American history.
Yep.
And so that we have more films and more stories told besides just being superheroes. We are happy to be your hosts of Love, Discovery, and Dim Sum. Please check out our website, podcast.loveanddiscovery.com. Follow us on social media at LDD Podcast. We also have our individual socials on there as well. And we will see you next time on our podcast.